On this edition of In the Gun, we've got the future schedule, the opponents that the Mountaineers will have for the near future. We're going to discuss that, break that all down for you, what the non-conference will look like, what the home and the away splits will be. We'll get into all of that on this edition of ITG.
Let's go!
You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Go single! Thomas nuts!
ITG
with Wes, Owen, and Jed.
What are they called again?
Wes, Jed, and Owen.
That's a West Virginia touchdown!
You end up like a dog that's been beat too much. That's me.
Dude, he is a salty dog.
Dog.
You're a junkyard dog.
Yeah.
Dirty, smelling dog.
Breaks a tackle, heads to the end zone. Another touchdown for the Mountaineers.
I thought we were really physical up front. We looked like we were having a lot of fun.
That there's a Tasmanian devil.
I do a pretty wicked Tasmanian devil.
You sound like you were underwater.
Hold on, you're too close to the microphone.
You sound more like SpongeBob.
Bubble Buddy.
You are In the Gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
On episode 165 of your new favorite WVU football podcast, I am Wesley Euler, and this feels good. We've got the band back together. Yes, I've got the best teammates in the business. The runaway beer truck. Down the sideline. Owen Schmidt, and of course, the signal caller extraordinaire himself, Jed Edgar Allan Poe Drenning. And this edition of ITG brought to you in part, as always, by our friends at BetOnline, your number one source for NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs this season, every stat, every matchup, live odds while the games are being played. It's all at BetOnline. And when the game's over, you can head over to their online casino to get in on games of blackjack, poker, or over 150 slots games. So head to their website today or get in or download their mobile app, to get in on the action. And make sure you use the promo code BELIEVE when you sign up for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV at BetOnline, where the game starts. And Jed, we don't know when the games are going to start, but we know the opponents for WVU's future, the non-conference teams, the home and the away splits that are going to be there as well, too. Let's dive into this, partner. What you got for us?
It's the easiest thing to do. Let's recap 2024, Wes. We can do it pretty quickly, and then we'll jump to a break, and we'll come back.
Before it even
happens. Some of these games go out into to the 2030s, right? But, again, we've talked about 2024 when it came out. From a non-conference standpoint, we all understand. We open with Penn State. That's still kind of hanging out there in terms of what that kick time is going to look like. That's going to be August 31st. We stay at home against Albany, first ever match against the University of Albany on September 7th. And then, of course, we head to Pittsburgh for the brawl on September 14th. Now, the interesting part, one of the things I was looking at with these future schedules is with these new Big 12 members. At what point will we make our first journey as a Big 12 member or conference mate with these teams to face them on the road for the first time? Home this year, let's get that out of the way first. Baylor, Kansas comes back to Morgantown. Kansas State comes to Morgantown. Iowa State comes to Morgantown. UCF. So even from a non-league standpoint, you got your hands full there when you look at our home schedule. Now, on the road, we will make our first trip, and maybe you'll make it with us, to Tucson, Arizona, the week of Halloween. So we'll be on the road to face the Wildcats, first ever matchup with the Wildcats. We'll be on the road to face Texas Tech in Lubbock, which used to be our furthest conference road trip, and now it's our fifth furthest conference road trip. And then, of course, we head to Stillwater, and we have the trip to Nippert in Cincinnati, which I'm kind of excited about heading back to Nippert. I think that's a little bit of a hidden gem, an underrated gem on campus. The last time we were there, of course, the last time we played Cincinnati in Cincinnati was at Paul Brown Stadium in 2011. Last time we were at Nippert was that highly controversial game. They were undefeated, ranked fifth in the country, 2009, biggest crowd in the history of Nippert Stadium. But, Owen, I'm just excited about a trip back to Nippert Stadium. I know you got to play there too.
Yeah, just a really cool vibe, man. It's tucked away, kind of like right there on campus. And just a cool little setting there. One of those places, I probably never would have went there before, but because I got to play there, I would definitely go back to a game.
I like those kind of that place is old school, like there's no corporate cookie cutter nature about that stadium. It's small, it's intimate, it's right on campus. And if you're there to watch some football and get rowdy. Yeah, I would like to make that trip again. I've been there once. I would like to make that trip again at some point. Maybe we'll have to do that. I don't know. We'll have to look at schedules to see if we can all pull that off this fall, Big O. But one of these years we'll definitely have to make the road trip to Cincinnati for sure, as it is now finally, Jed, a road trip that we can actually make in conference that's reasonable to just get behind the wheel of a car and go without having to drive for a day and get a bunch of hotel rooms. So yeah, we'll get into let's get into all of these on the other side. We will take a quick break here. Another thank you to our friends at Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Big shout out to JR and everybody at Team Toothman. We'll dive into these future schedules when we return on the other side. You are in the gun.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
For more West Virginia Mountaineer football content, be sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheGunPodcast.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
If you work the land, you just got to be a jack of all trades type. There's just too much to do. So if you got to be a welder or a farmer or a ditch digger, that's just who you are that day. Then tomorrow, you can be somebody else.
Get your Coyote at the new location of Johnston Equipment between Weston and Buchanan.
Back in the gun here as we take a look at some of the future opponents for the Mountaineers. Reminder, we don't know exactly when these games are going to be. September, October, November, week 1, week 7, right? But we know who the opponents are going to be and the split of home and away games. So, Jed, we briefly highlighted what this year's schedule breakdown is. What do we know about the future here going forward as well?
This is where the plot kind of starts to thicken. When you look at the non-conference schedule, some of those games are kind of laid out in terms of a date attached to them. But like you said, with the Big 12 games, that's not going to be the case at all right now. So let's move into 2025 from a non-conference slate standpoint. The FCS opponent is Robert Morris. I'll lean on you, our resident Robert Morris expert, to tell us what's going on there with our first ever meeting with the Colonials, I should say, on August 30th, 2025. Then from the other two non-league games, Pitt leaves the schedule for a while, but they're still on it in 2025 as they return to Morgantown. Now, what's interesting to me, and I remember talking to Shane Lyons when he was the AD here, we go to Athens, Ohio, to play Ohio University in a non-league game on September 6th of 2025. Now, you might be wondering, why go to Athens? Why play a G5 team on the road? Well, it became a very in vogue thing to do, where instead of paying a G5 team to come play you at home, you kind of have a different gate situation with them, and you trade off a 2-for-1. And you'll see that we have Ohio U coming to Morgantown twice later. So it's a 2-for-1, and this is our one trip to Athens. Now think about Athens. I'm not going to call them a giant killer, OU, but this is the other OU. But in 2023, they did knock off Iowa State last season in that 10-7 slugfest. Handful of years ago, they beat Kansas when everybody was beating Kansas. But guys, it was a decade ago in 2014. Penn State was still reeling from the scandal, and they were still trying to get their feet under them. And Ohio University went into Happy Valley and knocked off Penn State. So,
They also went to Heinz Field and beat Pitt in 2012.
Well, who didn't, right? But yeah, that's true too. But that's a great point. But yeah, from a non-conference standpoint, 2025, that's what you're looking at. But that OU thing, again, kind of interesting. The ones I don't find as alarming are the return trips to Morgantown. But anytime you hit the road, it's always a bit of a risk. And that's kind of the way I look at that. And then we'll hit the league schedule in 2025 and keep looking forward. Owen, what are your thoughts on heading to Athens, Ohio? You know it's going to be rowdy. And I would imagine Mountaineer fans, with it being just across the Ohio River so nearby, we will have an advantage. But still,
fun town to go visit too.
Fun town. Yeah,
speaking from personal experience.
No, I mean, anytime you play one of those non-conference games, those G5 scheduled teams, I mean, there's the risk of getting upset, obviously. But that's also kind of where a team has to understand the composure side of things when you're going to play a tune-up game, as they'd call them, back in the day. But I mean, I think it's cool just in general for the average athlete fan to be able to go and like check these places out, places outside of the league a little bit where you're not going every year. They're closer conference games. At least you get to travel to them, the away games. So, I mean, that's the major benefit, as far as my perspective now as a fan, being able to actually just access and be able to go to the games and experience those experiences.
When you talk to people who have played as a visitor at Keaton Stadium in Athens, I mean, it can be a tricky, difficult place. And look at it like this. I just mentioned that last year they beat Iowa State. Well, it was just 2 years ago when they went on the road to Ames and got boat raced 43-10 by Iowa State. So it speaks to the fact they're one of those teams that's a bit of a different animal at home. So maybe be on alert. Show up and play good football. You don't have to worry about it, but you better do those things. Now, when you jump into the league schedule in 2025, coming to Morgantown for the first time ever will be Utah. Colorado will be back in Morgantown for the first time since 2009. Texas Tech and TCU will also be in Morgantown. The road trips on the league schedule in 2025 will include a trip to Tempe, a trip to Provo, a trip to Houston. It will be our first return trip to Houston since what happened. We'll go back to Lawrence, Kansas, and we will head to UCF. Now, Tempe, Mountain America Stadium, first time since 1979 that we've gone and played them on campus since we got absolutely routed the only other trip we took there. But we do have that history of that Cactus Bowl win in Phoenix nearby against those guys. And I'm kind of excited, I have to admit, even though it's going to be a rugged journey. LaVell Edwards Stadiums, the Wasatch Mountains, I mean, they say so much about that trip to BYU and what that can mean, but that's what 2025 shapes up to look like from a Big 12 conference schedule standpoint. And then when we jump into 2026, these are the things.
Just wait, hold on real quick.
Go ahead.
No explanation, just yes or no. Big O, you first. When Colorado comes to Morgantown in 2025, is Prime still the head coach?
Ooh, man.
No explanation, no nothing. Just yes or no.
No.
Jed?
I agree.
I think we're going to make it a clean sweep. I'm going no as well.
Good call. Now, when you jump into 2026, these are the games. It's hard to believe they're almost here. This is just a couple years away, guys. That Alabama series starts in 2026. It seemed like forever ago when that thing was scheduled. So we will open the 2026 season at home in Morgantown against Alabama. Most likely Kalen DeBoer. We know it's not going to be Nick Saban, but new regime at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer comes from Washington to take that over. The only other meeting was, again, it's hard to believe it's been 10 years since we played those guys in Atlanta. in the 2014 and that loss to Atlanta. We played them tough, but hard to believe that's been a decade. So 2026, we open with Bama at home, followed by the UT Martin Skyhawks. I actually played them when we were at Sanford, guys, on September 12th. And then September 19th, back to East Carolina for the first time in a long time, probably, Owen, since when it was just after you played. I think the last trip we made down there was 2008, that loss.
Or 2008,
Stu's first year as head coach. So, so from a non-league standpoint, those are your three in 2026.
Wait, Jed, real quick, why?
Yep, go ahead.
Because there's no return leg or 2-for-1 with East Carolina, is there? That's just a one-off
of
us going there. I was confused by that.
Yeah, if there is, it's not publicly been scheduled at home yet, so I don't know that there is. I don't know what the situation with that one is. Good question, but I'd have to dig back and see if we owe them that trip. I don't even know, to be honest with you. Some of these things go a decade and a half prior, but jump into the league schedule in 2026 at home. This is just so crazy to say some of these things in Morgantown, West Virginia. Here come the Arizona Wildcats in a conference game. Houston comes to town. That will be their first trip ever, in my estimation. It should have been last year. Missed opportunity by the Big 12 to have Dana come back to Morgantown. Oklahoma State comes, Kansas returns, and Cincinnati returns. Now on the road, the 4 league games we will play on the road: Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech. And here we go, guys. Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City to play the Utah Utes in 2026. Supremely difficult venue to play in. A lot of history there. That place was tore down and basically rebuilt, hosted the 2002 Olympics, but they were a tough out at home, and we will get our first bite of the Utah apple on the road in 2026. Thoughts on that real quick?
That'd be a cool one to go to for sure. I could definitely see saving up some time and taking vacation to go out there.
Yeah, I forgot about the if you need a flight or you got to leave pretty early. I forgot about the Olympic tie-ins there too, Jed. That's right, from the 2002 Winter Olympics. So yeah, that's a good shout by you too. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I would love to go to I would love to go see us play at Utah or at BYU at some point. That's definitely I want to get to one of those.
Well, again, the advantage with Utah, Salt Lake City is a major
hub. You can
hub,
fly right into Salt Lake City.
That's right. There's a lot of opportunities with flights. So let's jump on to 2027. Okay, from a non-conference standpoint, VMI, here they come on West Virginia's schedule for the first time since 1972.
The fighting Stews. The fighting Coach Stews, baby.
The fighting Stews. 11-0 West Virginia all-time against VMI. Let's try and keep it that way when they come to town in September of 2027. Here comes one of those return trips from Ohio University. The Bobcats return to Morgantown or come to Morgantown on September 18th. And then we go to Tuscaloosa. That's to start the season that year, guys. Right now that's scheduled for September 4th of 2027. So we will go to Tuscaloosa to take on the Tide. I can't even imagine what that environment's going to be like. Thoughts before I jump into the league schedule for 2027?
So hard to look so far out like that. Can't wait to see what game day.
I'm just saying it's going to be really cool when we open the season, Labor Day weekend, college game day in Tuscaloosa. And Neil Brown is the head coach of the Crimson Tide after leading WVU to the national championship and multiple Big 12 games, right? And then he goes and takes the Alabama job. It's going to be great to see Neil again and thank him once again for all that he did and, beating Alabama the season before, which launched us into that national championship in 2026. So, yeah, looking forward to going and seeing Neil in his new home in 2027 with my national champions T-shirt and hat on.
With a smile on your face, right?
Hey, dude has been playing EA long hours, haven't you, Wes?
No, I've been dreaming about July. When it comes out about 6 or 7 weeks from now.
We do have to mention there's always the possibility, even with just a couple years away. Who knows if the SEC goes from 8 conference games to 9? Maybe Alabama's trying to wiggle free of this West Virginia non-conference. Who knows?
And just real quick,
right
now,
Jed, it's scheduled. Yep.
If that were a possibility to mutually agree to end that with Alabama, and we could pick up Pitt and not have the break with Pitt, I'd be interested.
Sure, I agree. So let's jump into the league schedule 2027. Again, coming to Morgantown will be the Arizona State Sun Devils and a conference game. BYU returns, Iowa State and UCF on the road in the Big 12 in 2027. This could change too, depending on what disrupts in college football across the landscape. Who knows? Baylor, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Cincinnati, and we will make our first trip as conference mates to face Colorado in Folsom Field. Of course, not our first trip. The last time we were out there was that game we want to forget in 2008. But winding this down, guys, down the home stretch we come, that's as far out as the Big 12 schedule is laid out. So beyond 2027, you can't even really forecast who you'll play home and away in the Big 12. So let's jump to 2028. The only game right now on the schedule is a neutral site game. Right now, it's slated most likely as the opener on September 2nd in Charlotte. We're going to be partying like it's 2018 as we face once again the Tennessee Volunteers. And that was a really cool venue with a great turnout. So it makes perfect sense to me why both schools and the city of Charlotte would want to do that again. Neutral site game, 2028, West Virginia, Tennessee. I love that. Jumping to 2029, here is the other Ohio University trip to Morgantown on September 1st. We head back to Pitt because we have the Brawl back on the schedule in 2029. So we head back to Acrisure on September 8th. Jumping into 2030, non-conference, West Virginia, we say it all the time, let's keep it that way, knock on wood, unbeaten all time against FCS teams, scheduled to open the season for the first time ever against St. Francis. Interesting, situation there. St. Francis has been playing football since the late 1800s. They dropped it for a while. They moved from D3 up to 1AA in the early 90s, but they'll be playing games like this more moving forward. But West Virginia 2030, that's 6 years out. Won the Northeast Conference a couple years ago. Not a bad football team at the FCS level. And then, of course, the return trip from Pitt on September 7th. And then finally, 2031, the only thing listed is the trip to Pitt on September 6th. And the last one I have, guys, 2032, the only thing listed is Pitt returning to Morgantown in early September of 2032. And that wraps it up in terms of what is publicly available on the schedule in future schedules for West Virginia. Just a fun conversation to have every once in a while to remind some of the brands that we're going to be playing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting in ways too. Like Owen said, it's so far away, but it's still exciting to look at. I was at that opener in 2018 against Tennessee down in Charlotte. And had a great time. Now, obviously, us going out there and whooping up on the Vols was a big part of having that great time, but it was a blast. And it's, I think, pretty cool that 10 years later, you're going to do that again. It was 2018, now 2028. So, yeah, of course, those Alabama games, all those different things highlighted in there. Pretty cool. And, yeah, while it seems far away, it'll also be 2027, and we'll be going to Tuscaloosa before we know it. That'll happen next week when it's all said and done. A big thank you to Fortis before we get out of here. Our guy, Rick Lewis, and Fortis, we all know, for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. And to our newest friends of the program who have been rocking and rolling with us for a couple months now, Johnston Equipment, big thank you to them. Make sure you're checking out their new location, Route 33, just outside of Weston. That'll do it for this edition of ITG. But also, later on this week, we've got another episode of Who Wants to Be a Mountaineer, and there's a special guest, a former teammate of Owen Schmidt, who's going to join us here on the podcast. And, might have had something to do with a dramatic moment in that big Sugar Bowl victory in 2005 down there in Atlanta. That's all we'll say for now.
Big faker.
Yes, when he comes on Who Wants to Be a Mountaineer, he won't be able to fake it. How about that? There's your final hint. And of course, the one thing that we ask of you before we close this down, before we get out of here, is to be an ear and tell an ear. Spread the good word about your new favorite WVU football podcast. For the beer truck, Big O, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. A thank you to our producer, Skylar, as well, too. I'm Wesley Euler. Take care, everybody. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
Be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.